All right, good morning, everybody. This is KB5MIQ Big Boy. I'm gonna redo a video I did last week. Hello, ham radio cat. Uh, Made a video soldering the Pl-259. I wasn't real happy with it. I tried to rearrange my shack a little bit. Hopefully, you can see what I'm gonna do a little better. All right, cat, you got to get down. Okay, hop down, buddy. My ham radio cat. It's got to come in here when I do this. Okay, we're gonna talk about a little bit about different types of soldering equipment. It doesn't have to be real expensive soldering equipment. Use a pencil iron, cheap pencil iron will do. We'll do this for especially for just making up coax. Now, if you're gonna actually get into doing board work, actually building radios, you're gonna need a better iron. You're gonna need better training. We'll talk a little bit about my background in soldering. I'm not an expert in soldering. Back in '03, I did attend a 40-hour class to get mil spec certified for soldering for my job, and I had to pass building a board, which I did. Problem when you get into board building, you have heat issues. You got to really control your heat well, or you'll cause problems. And my job didn't require me working on boards. I built Bradley fighting vehicle and MLRS rocket launcher vehicle instrument panels. Panels were, in my opinion, based on old '60s technology. They were all hardwire, for chassis hardwire stuff. So really the bulk of my soldering was soldering butt splices. We ended up, even though we crimped them, we soldered them. And soldering J hooks on LEDs. Did it for years, but that's pretty much the limit of my soldering, doing that. I had been soldering Pl-259s before since I got into ham radio, and always tried to make up my own. Here to get older, I've been buying a few made up cables, but I still like to make my own up on occasion. Talking to a friend of mine, WD5HKV and W5DSL. I probably got his call wrong. Cody, I'll get your call right one day. I'm sorry, bud. We was talking about different soldering techniques, and HKV actually, when he was a kid, he built a radio using an old wood burning pencil, which is basically a soldering iron with a little, with a bigger, wider end on it. We'll talk about two types I have. This is a Weller called a pyro pin. This thing comes with different attachments. I've got the soldering tip on it now. It also has a little heat gun tip on it. Runs on cigarette lighter butane. It's got a little wider tip that I really like to use, but it does transfer heat well. And if you're in an area where you don't have access to electricity, one of these, can of cigarette lighter butane, you're good to go. You don't have any problem making any connections up. It's got a little cover, goes with it, slides over the tip. When you're done with it, put it away like that. All right. This is a Weller control temperature station for soldering. I come up on one of these years ago, got lucky, and I usually run about 600 on my degrees. Probably some people say it's a little hot, but that's just what I like to use. And okay, cat. Also, this has different tips you can get. I use a really fine tip, and you keep a good wet sponge for cleaning your tip off. Now, soldering electronics, electrical. You want to use rosin core solder. Don't ever use acid core solder because it will corrode on your connections and won't last. So always use rosin core solder. And solder usually got flux in it, so there's usually no reason if you're soldering new wire to ever use flux. In fact, the mill standard that we had to go by didn't allow us to use flux, although we was rebuilding old harnesses, and a lot of times they'd come in with diesel on them and dirt on them, and we did have to use some rosin flux on occasion, or we had to spend a lot of time with alcohol just cleaning the harness up where we could work on it. So I've done it both ways. But for new coax, new connectors, just use a good rosin core solder with flux in it, and you'll be good to go. Now, I've already stripped my wire back. I'm a little crude at doing this. I'm making up an RG8X jumper. Already got one end on it. Reason I went ahead and stripped the wire back, I don't think y'all need to see me cutting my fingers with an X-Acto knife, which I'm pretty good at. Before you strip your wire back, it's real important that you put the coupler on and you put the reducer on if you're using RG8X before you do anything else, because once you strip the wire and got the braid folded back, you can't put the reducer on. And once you solder the tip on, you can't put nothing on. So We're going to tin this right now before we start. It's good to have a good vise on your bench. My camera, I'm trying to get this camera a little better where everybody can see this a little better. This is just a Harbor Freight bench top vise. Doesn't have to be real expensive. Something to hold your wire. Now, before you start, make sure you got your tip untangled out of everything possible else it could be tangled up in. You want to tin your tip a little bit. You do that by putting a little solder, melt some solder on your tip. That cleans your tip. Wipe it off. You got a good shiny tip to start with your transfer. You want to bring the solder to the heat. That's what I'm going to do now. Start applying heat to the back of the wire. Okay. By tinning that, helps keep your ends together from fraying. And you want to be real careful. You want to fold your braid back. And if there was any foil on your center conductor, make sure it's back. You don't want any of that to come in contact with your center conductor. It'll cause a short. So now I'm going to install my Pl-259. And I've got it on there far enough I can see the tip sticking through. Now this is something I do, makes it a little easier to control everything. I'll go ahead and screw the adapter in place. Tighten it up. Help screw everything up in place. And it's something I do a little different, and the experts will tell you I'm crazy for not doing it. And if I was using RG8, I probably would. But this adapter actually presses the ground in contact. You're really supposed to go back through these holes and dip a solder in there to dip your ground, connect your ground here. But with this pressing in there, I've never had a problem by not doing that. So all I'm actually going to solder is just solder the center conductor in place. Put some on my tip. We'll come in behind it. And just start trying to fill that cup up. Let it get hot enough. Okay, see how that looks. Okay, we've got it in place. Now we're going to check and see if we've got any got continuity or any short issues. That's where your multimeter comes in handy. Go ahead and put your coupler in place. Let's go ahead and get this thing finished. All right. Multimeter set on continuity. We want to go center conductor to center conductor. And we have continuity. Now we want to make sure we don't have a short, and we don't have a short. Plus you got to make sure you have continuity on the braid. And we have continuity on the braid. Hopefully this one turned out better than the last one did. Honestly, these jumpers, if you don't need over a 3-foot jumper, you can about buy them as cheap as you can build them anymore. These Amphenol connectors are about $4 a piece. The adapters are $1 a piece. So you got $10 in connectors using your own coax. But it's a good skill everybody needs to have if you're into this hobby. Like I said, I hope this worked out good. We're going to look at it and see. And if anybody has anything I can ever help them with, my YouTube channel is based on ham radio on a budget. My next project's going to be a 160 dipole. Everybody, you got every option in the world to build a dipole. You can buy them pre-built. You can buy ballons and do your own, or you can do something like this. Find a piece of plexiglass. This is one I had for years. Drill some holes in it, make your connections, hang it, put you some insulators on the end of it, build it as cheap as you can. Like I said, I do everything on a budget that I can do with this hobby, and enjoy doing these videos. I hope they help somebody out. If you got any questions, KB5MIQ is my call sign on QRZ. My email's posted. Drop me an email. I'll help you any way I can. Thanks to all who subscribe. We've gained a couple more subscribers this week. I appreciate it. If y'all feel like it helps anybody out, pass the word, especially the new hams. We try to help them get on this hobby and enjoy it the best way we can. Hope everybody has a great weekend. This is KB5MIQ 73.